Goodbye! Hello, Heisman.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. No, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Oh, the cries of Texas is back. Are they louder than the dogs barking in Austin this weekend? We've got Georgia headed to Texas. We're going to break down that game of the week that will have all eyes on it on Saturday night. But also, if I can tickle your fancy with a little Alabama, Tennessee, we've got chaos brewing potentially in the SEC. Gentlemen, this might be an elimination game for the college football playoff. We'll weigh that out in just a little bit. And the Hoosiers try and stay undefeated against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. We've got ball to talk. And Trey here on the Three Technique, a college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. You have questions for multiple teams.
Yeah, we're figuring out if I was going to name this show, it'd have to be something like CSI Saturday. I know it's the Solid Verbal. We love that show and they do the bit. But if I may recommend something to Dan and Ty, CSI Saturday, because I'm asking, who are you to a lot of these teams? And we're going to hopefully figure this out this week.
Well, you put out a graphic on Twitter that how many teams did it end up having? 52?
51. I guess technically 52 because we did learn something about Arizona State. We were under the impression that they had self-imposed a postseason ban, and we were corrected on that. So that's fantastic news for us in rooting for the Sun Devils. So technically 52 teams should be on that graphic, counting Arizona State.
Yeah, huge mea culpa there. So when Arizona State had the show cause and a bunch of hand slapping from the NCAA, I was under the impression, and I swear I read this somewhere, that they were self-imposing another bowl ban. They weren't expected to compete this year, so it would just made sense to go ahead and do that and further avoid any other wrath from the NCAA. But upon further review, gentlemen, Arizona State is perfectly eligible for the postseason, which means they are in the running for the Big 12 championship game and the college football playoff. Hypothetically, a lot of ball to play, and guys, Jeff Sims might put the kibosh to both of those dreams here in a little bit. We'll talk Big 12. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We've got the Big Three to talk first, but quick thank you to all the new subscribers, new folks jumping on the bandwagon at 3TechPod on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube, or if you are listening to the podcast, Spotify, Apple, we're seeing a lot of growth there as well. We've had some guests on the show. I know we're exposing ourselves to a whole new audience of folks, and we're glad to have you as a part of the Jimmies and the Joes. So hit subscribe if you are already following. Leave us a rating. That helps the show tremendously, and we're really excited to keep talking ball with you. So let's get into it. Big Three presented by Home Field Apparel. 15% off awaits those who use 3TechPod on their good website. Georgia, Texas, without a doubt, the potential game of the year. It's one that everybody has had circled on the calendar. Texas won the last meeting between these two teams in the Sugar Bowl. Wonder if Uga has any revenge on his mind after Bebo nearly killed him on the New Orleans sidelines. Weird stuff happens in that town, I tell you what. But number 5, Georgia, seemingly has some cracks in the foundation, guys. And as we look at this game, I came away thinking, no one wears the crown forever. And it's becoming apparent that that death grip that we thought Kirby Smart had on the sport, had on recruiting, had on the win column, may be more temporary than we originally thought. Texas is a 3.5-point favorite as the line stands right now. Where do you guys net out on this? I guess, Garrett, let's go with you first.
Yeah, for me right now, I'm taking Georgia plus the 3.5. I don't know that they necessarily win, but I'm going to go ahead and pick them too. But the 3.5 for me is the first place where I just want to say, I don't think that they lose by that much. I think this game is going to be close either way. I don't think that there's really a situation where one team really blows the other team out. You could see, I guess, a late pull away type of thing where maybe at the end of the game, if it's close and one team scores to put it out of reach, I guess that could happen. But I think of all the outcomes, it's most likely that this thing's coming down to a long field goal. And for me, a lot of this has to do with where Georgia is and where Texas is as a program. So where Georgia is right now, they're in a spot where they cannot lose another game, or for all intents and purposes, they are out of the SEC race and probably on the outside looking in for the playoff, needing a lot of things to drop their way. I think that's something that they know and realize. I don't think that a lot of them are saying, oh, well, if we make 10-2, we're for sure going to make the playoff. They might like to think so, and there's probably a scenario where a 10-2 Georgia team does make the playoff, but they would much rather have that in their control. They'd much rather be playing a game in Atlanta at the end of the year for a chance at a bye and to be able to do that. So I think that's where Georgia is right now. And based on the type of team, the type of coaching they have, I think they're going to be able to get up for this one and show up, as well as the fact that I'm really impressed with where Carson Beck has been the last couple of weeks. I think he's played a whole lot better. And I know that he's not necessarily a world beater. I know he was just playing Mississippi State, but I mean, he's put up some big numbers recently in that game against Alabama and that game against Mississippi State, put up some big totals. At the end of the day, I'm still not really sure where Texas is. I think Texas is in a similar place to Ohio State last week. They've kind of played like half of a test, right? Ohio State had played Iowa with a good defense and taking care of business. And, last week Texas played Oklahoma with a good defense and kind of an okay, sort of situation there. But I don't think that Texas is in a spot right now where they've faced a real test. And now they have to play one of the probably better teams in the country. And so this is kind of where, for me, I look at this and I say, Georgia's on the ropes. Georgia's got to get it. They have to win this game. And Texas is going to learn a lot about themselves. If there's one place I think this becomes an issue for Texas, it's with the slow starts. Texas has started a little bit slower. Texas hasn't quite gotten out of their blocks and gotten off to the races quite as quick as we might have hoped they would. Started slow against Mississippi State. That game was pretty close towards the end of that game. And a reminder that I know the halftime score for Texas looked really good. If you rewind to about the 2-3 minute mark of that game, that was still a pretty close game going into the half. And so, it's not to take away anything that they've done. They've looked really good against who they played. So did Ohio State. And then they lost because they finally played a team that was really good and really quality. And that was the issue. Right now, maybe home field factors in and Texas finds a way to win. For me right now, it's too close for me to call with any sort of certainty. So I'm going to take Georgia plus the points because I want both of those outcomes as opposed to Texas covering.
Is it crazy for me to just oversimplify this and say, in my mind, anytime I can get Georgia and the points, I'm still going to take that? Because that's where I'm at in my headspace. When I'm thinking about Georgia, I think their demise has been overblown a little bit. Listen, the Texas runs away with it is totally on the table here. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's impossible that Texas doesn't run away with this. I think that is a conceivable outcome. But Gary, I'm glad you brought up that Texas really hasn't been tested yet, because I feel like the national narrative on this, you're actually the first person I've actually heard take Georgia in all the podcast previews I've already listened to this week. And I am going to follow up with that. I'm going to take Georgia plus the points. Number one, because I can get Georgia plus the points. That just seems like something I should do until proven otherwise, regardless of how Texas has looked. Just betting on the program stability of Georgia. I know there might have seen some cracks, but listen, I think that's kind of based on Georgia getting shell-shocked in the first quarter against Alabama. If you go back and just erase the first quarter, only watch the last three, I think you walk away, and take into account what's happened since then, I think you walk away thinking that Georgia is the much better team than Alabama. And they just got shell-shocked for a quarter. You tip your hat to Kalen DeBoer, you tip your hat to the scripted plays, and you move on to the next week. Also, Kirby loves pretending to be an underdog.
He does.
And he actually is an underdog in this game. I'm fascinated to see how his team responds and how he motivates his team. But to kind of give you a little bit of a cause for pause to Texas, Garrett, to follow up what you're saying, these are the defenses, or the offenses, that the Texas defense has faced. The Texas defense has looked amazing. They've looked lights out. I think they've given up like less than 15 points per game.
36 or 38 total points.
38 total points. That's incredible. Okay. They faced the 86th, 119th, 67th, 128th, 76th, and 126th ranked total offenses. I'll ask you guys, who's the best quarterback that Texas has faced so far? Is it Owen McCown at UTSA? Is it Van Buren?
It's Van Buren.
I think it's the true freshman or redshirt freshman
Right.
Van Buren.
The Van Buren with
Mississippi
no
State.
tape on him, so he came out there, as a fresh new thing, which maybe is a little bit of credit to Texas, but still, like it's a freshman that you let do that.
Yeah, and again, I know the Texas fans are seething, and Mitch is gonna appease them here in just a little bit, so just chill out, Texas fans. But I need to see it from Texas against a team that I know is legit, and I know Georgia has been beat down. I know that Georgia has been cast off by a lot of people nationally. I don't think that's the right move. I really don't. I need to see it from Texas. If Texas wins this week, if Texas wins, not even covers the spread, if they just win the game, hook them, baby. Like I'll be all in on Texas, and I'll think that they're legit, and I will eat my crow. I gotta see it before I really dive in.
Gentlemen, you both make good points. You both make well-researched points. I'm gonna keep this simple. Who has the better defense? Texas, in my opinion, and statistically. Who has a better quarterback? Texas, in my opinion. Who's at home in this game? Texas. The three simplest icons that I look for in deciding who's going to win this game, in my personal rubric, all come up burnt orange.
I think defense, you gotta see the defense against the legit offense, though.
Sure, sure.
Like that's my one pause on that
question. Yeah.
So, and I think the issue that a lot of people had with Texas's defense coming into this season was going to be that front four. Could they hold their own? And oh my gosh, they've looked really good. Not just because I think the front four have been solid, but guys, the linebacking core is the best linebacking core in the country. And I will stake whatever little reputation I have on this podcast to this. If we're playing, college football, the video game, these guys are all like 90 plus speed and athleticism ratings. The way that they're able to not only drop into coverage and make a quarterback's life hell trying to get it to the tight end or try and get it out into the flat, but also the way that they defend the run. They come off the edge, they plug the A gap and get after the passer. It's been nothing short of incredible. And Pete Kwiatkowski's defense, sure, has torn up a bunch of lesser competition, but guys, that's what you want to see from a really good team, right? Take care of the lesser competition. They made Oklahoma look like a program in the Stone Age, to the point where you listen to other recaps and previews this week, guys, and we'll talk about Oklahoma in a little bit. I mean, the alarm bells should be going off for the coaching staff, bar none, because of the lack of adjustments and just the way that Texas made that squad look last week in the Red River rivalry, right? So all of that to say, I like what Texas put on the field. Moreover, I'm concerned at what the Bulldogs have put on the field when it comes to what they've got going in the trenches. Offensively, they cannot get the running game going. They're having a hard time at moments protecting Carson Beck and allowing him to look down the field. Defensively, they can't get pressure on the quarterback unless they're bringing a blitz, which then in turn would leave one of those dynamic Texas wide receivers open. For Georgia offensively, I don't know who their X factor is. I was looking through the stats this week trying to find someone that jumped off the page, someone that can take over the game other than Carson Beck stepping up like he did in that second half of the Alabama game. Guys, you're not going to find it. They have talent at every single position, but I don't know that they have a dynamic talent. And so for all of those reasons, when it was gut check time and I was just kind of forced to pick, hey, how many does Texas win by if they're going to win this game? For me, it's 2 scores. And so I'm going to take Texas minus the 3.5. If you follow College Football Insiders at all and subscribe to their advanced analytics previews, they have Texas winning this by 10. I'll kind of double down on that ante and say that they win by 14-17. I'm that confident in the speed, the physicality, and the scheme, quite frankly, of these Texas Longhorns. No doubt, the biggest challenge that they've got so far, maybe the biggest challenge that they'll face all season. But I think that I'm all in with this Texas team being the most elite team in the country.
Yeah, Mitch, one more feather in that Texas cap that I think is really a place where Texas will have the advantage is in the running back room. I wasn't really impressed with Texas's running backs going into that Red River rivalry, but let me tell you what, Trey Wisner has really turned into a good back. And I think kind of emerging, had, kind of a couple of flashes earlier in the season. And from a lot of the Texas fans I was talking to, they really wanted to see more of Trey Wisner. And so I think getting him going and, maybe helping him not fumble towards the goal line or something like that. But, if they can clean that little bit up, he should be a really good back for them. And then on the flip side, I mean, we've talked about it on the spot, but Georgia really hadn't run the ball that well. I don't think that probably gets started against Texas. That's a good front four, and I don't know that they get that started. Now, to what Trey was saying, we will see, because who knows what Texas defense really is right now. They look good. They look the part. Everything about them looks like what a defense is supposed to look like. They still really hadn't played anybody yet. So maybe they're going to make Georgia look like nobody. The reason I'm picking the Dogs is because I don't think that's true. I just don't think that defense is going to make Georgia look like a nobody. I think Georgia's going to come out and, kind of gut check Texas defense for the first time all season.
And to put another point in favor of Texas, just really quickly, this is not the type of game they've struggled in historically over the last 10 years. They do not struggle to get up for the big games. They struggle to get up for the medium to lower tier games,
especially on the road. Put them on upset watch against Vandy maybe, but this isn't the one they typically drop.
Yeah, suddenly that Texas Vandy game has a little bit of juice to it. Which
it's going to be a fun game to watch.
Whomst have thunk that in the preseason. Texas, this is the, I think, last real landmine for them until they get to College Station. And hey, we'll see what Texas A&M is like by the 12th game in the season. Excited to get both of those teams to that rivalry game and see if there are playoff implications on the line for both of those teams. But yeah, Trey, you're right. They play up to big competition. Sometimes they play down, at least in the past, they played down to the poor competition. Georgia should get Texas's best shot in this one. And that is going to be must-watch TV. If you like chaos, you'll like our next game. Alabama, 3-point favorites on the road at Tennessee. Alabama is the 7th-ranked team in the country. Tennessee is the 11th-ranked team. Neither squad feel like they've really earned those little funny numbers next to their name. Guys, I've gone back and forth on which side of this line that I want. I believe it's come down since I gave Alabama the 3 points when I made this run sheet. So the betting public coming in on Tennessee. Trey, I'll kick it to you first. And I talked to one of the doctors in our office who's an Alabama grad. Said, man, is this a true coin flip game? As true of a coin flip as you've seen since you've been an Alabama fan? And without hesitating, he said, yes, it is.
Yeah, and I totally get that sentiment. I think it will be a hard-fought game. But listen, a lot of negative attention has come to Alabama over the last couple of weeks. When you lose to Vanderbilt and almost lose to South Carolina and really blow the game against South Carolina, that's rightful negative attention. But I think Tennessee might deserve a little bit more negative attention. So I'm going to take Alabama -3 here. And it's largely built on lack of trust in the Tennessee offense, guys. I think it might be time to sound the alarm after 3 straight really lackluster performances. Look at the Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Florida games. Nico's looking a lot more like Joe Milton than Hendon Hooker. And that should sound – listen, he's a freshman. Tons of time to grow into what his ceiling can be. We've seen the ceiling already against lesser competition. But the recipe for Tennessee over the last few weeks has certainly been to turn it into a defensive slugfest and rely on the defense. That hasn't been how you beat Alabama this year. You beat Alabama in a shootout by putting up points and forcing them to make a lot of mistakes. So that's what Vanderbilt did. They stayed on the field offensively. South Carolina in the second half was able to stay on the field offensively in spurts. That's what helped them close that gap, and they had a crazy onside kick and some craziness. Alabama should have run the clock out instead of falling and going into the end zone. But I think that the Tennessee offense is the most concerning unit in this game for me. And that's why I'm going to take Alabama -3.
I think I'm flipping my pick because in the run sheet, Trey, did you like how I kicked it to you unscripted? Because in the run sheet, I have Tennessee +3. I think I'm going to flip my pick to Alabama, though.
I convinced him. Let's go.
Minus the points. I sat on this all afternoon, and yes, I think that Alabama's defense is a concern. I think that Alabama's offense, to some extent, is also a concern, specifically their offensive line and just the inability for them to run the football. But then you flip it over to Tennessee, and I don't trust that offense right now, and I really don't trust that defense in a big spot. Now, they played well at times, but you talk to people around the industry, and everyone seems to agree that Tennessee's defense, especially now with their middle linebacker done for the year due to a torn ACL, it's a ticking time bomb. That secondary is razor thin. And so I do think that Tennessee can absolutely win this game. And if they get a turnover or two early, that momentum, the Neyland Stadium energy, that could absolutely carry the Vols to a victory outright. But even as I'm saying that, I get cold feet about taking the Vols. After what I saw last week at Florida, where they were shut out in the first half, it was 3-0 well into the third quarter, gentlemen. I'm going to take Alabama minus the points.
I don't really think that the Tennessee defensive criticism is all that fair. I know people are talking about it. The biggest number they've given up so far is 19? 19 is the biggest number they've given up against Arkansas. And I get Arkansas not necessarily world beaters on that offensive side, so you may not be super comfortable with that, but looking at the logs, they haven't really given up that many points this year against, SEC teams. You can only play who they put out in front of you. When you look at the consistency of each unit, the only unit that I really trust right now is Tennessee's defense. Bama's defense has looked susceptible against, different teams. I think Bama's defense got a little bit exposed the last couple of weeks, and I think we found the answer to Alabama's defense. It's a quarterback with wheels who can complete a pass, 10 yards downfield. You don't have to be a guy who can hit the ball over the top. You don't have to be able to pick apart a defense through multiple reads. If you can be a Diego Pavia or a Lenoris Sellers, you can beat Bama's defense, right? You can get after them. And so I just don't really trust what Bama's defense is right now. I want to trust Bama's offense. I love what they got. I love Milroe, love Ryan Williams. It's a great couple of players on there, but they didn't look all that good against South Carolina. They made some bad mistakes. There were a couple times last week I was like, oh, Jalen, what are you doing? Just head-scratching mistakes from Jalen Milroe, and you can't do that, right? You can't do that. I'm going to take a little bit of Mitch's matrix from the Texas game and say, who's got the better quarterback? It's Bama, but who's got the better defense? To me, it's Tennessee, and who's playing at home? It's Tennessee. I'm going to take a little bit of Mitch's matrix here and say, I think this is what ends up pulling him out over the top. I think Nico runs a little bit in this one. I think if they have any idea of what they're doing in that Tennessee offensive meeting room, they should be scheming up QB runs and rollouts and stuff like that to give Nico a chance to get outside the pocket, maybe stretch that Bama defense a little bit. I think Sampson's going to be a huge factor in this, and I think he's going to run that thing up and down the field. Bama's been getting pushed off the line of scrimmage a little bit on that defensive side. They didn't look all that good against South Carolina. Combine that with the home field advantage. Both teams in desperation mode, right? Both teams know that this is their season, right? If they lose this game, they're probably out of the playoff picture, at the very least, life support for the playoff picture. I trust what Tennessee has a little bit more right now. I'm going to trust Nico as a freshman to, have some games that are bad and then find places and ways to bounce back. I think he's better than this, and I think he takes that step forward this week.
Garrett, my only pushback to that is I think we can ask the same question we were asking about the Texas defense about the Tennessee defense. I didn't pull the numbers like I did with Texas, but you look at the quarterbacks they faced, you look at the offenses that they've gone against, not exactly a murderer's row. And that's my only concern about the Tennessee defense going into this one.
Yeah, Tennessee's defense is second overall in total defense. Their advanced numbers look really good. And again, that's what you want a good team to do. Take care of the trash, right? Don't stoop to their level. What really concerns me about Tennessee is Billy Napier was on the record before the Florida-Tennessee game saying, yeah, the way you beat Tennessee is you stack the box, you stop the run, and you make a freshman quarterback beat your corners in man-on-man coverage, right? And again, I just found Nico staring down wide receivers, throwing into traffic. He gets rattled a little bit.
A lot of overthrowing.
And a lot of overthrows. Yes, he's got a cannon of an arm, but he's got to figure out how to use it, right? And so that is my very tangible concern for Tennessee. Now, I talked about this off the top. This will be the second loss in conference for one of these two teams. Now, I know we're going to have 10-2 teams that make it into the 12-team playoff, but guys, on a scale of 1 to 5 here, 5 being a hot take and 1 being absolutely ice cold, rate this is a college football playoff elimination game.
I don't think that's a hot take at all. So whatever number is not a hot take, 1 in that situation.
Yeah, 1, super cold. Because this is for all intents and purposes, it is because of the SEC pecking order. It's not 10-2. 10-2 in the Big 12, 10-2 in the ACC. You might get a little bit more of a look. 10-2 in the SEC, and you're 5th or 6th in the conference, maybe. There's going to be some teams that finish with really good records this year in the SEC. If it's 10-2, but you're looking up at LSU, Ole Miss, A&M, Georgia, Texas, if you're looking up at those teams, you're going to have some issues, and you're not going to be in a spot where, depending on tiebreakers, whatever else, you're not going to be in a spot where the 6th or 7th best SEC team is going to end up making the playoff. It's just not going to happen.
I think both of these teams' schedules warrant this being a must-win game too, because Tennessee still has to go to Georgia, Alabama still has to go to LSU. Both have in-state rivalry games that, while they should win on paper, going to be tricky at the end of the year. Tennessee goes to Vandy, Alabama hosts Auburn, so lots of opportunities to stub your toe and get a third loss if you drop your second one here.
I also want to say this is the one final thing that I really think about this game. This is a rivalry game. This is a big rivalry. Third Saturday in October. This is a massive rivalry game. A lot of hatred on both sides for these teams. You talk to a lot of these teams, this is the game they circle, or one of the 2 games they circle at the beginning of the season. Both of these teams want to beat the brakes off the other guys. So you can take all rivalry game implications and put them on this game. This is one of those crazy, you're going to see something weird. I don't think you're going to see 5 receiving touchdowns from a Jalen Hyatt type of thing, but you're going to see some kind of weird thing in this game.
A lot is on the line here. Very, very excited to see how this one breaks out. Yeah, LSU entering into the discussion as well. That's just a wild card that I feel like has gotten thrown back in the SEC. We'll be able to talk LSU a little bit later on as they're taking on Arkansas this week as well. Final Big 3 game of the week, Nebraska at number 16, Indiana. The Hoosiers, Trey, 6.5-point favorites at home. Do they keep it rolling?
I think they do. I think they win this game. I went back and forth on the cover, but I think the experience of Indiana, both from a coaching standpoint, and I love Kirk Cignetti in this matchup, and a quarterback standpoint, and Curtis Rourke taking on Dylan Raiola. Dylan Raiola has an amazing future ahead of him, but just like we saw with Nico, the shine's kind of wearing off on the freshman season over the last couple of weeks, even to a greater extent than it has with Nico. So Nebraska loves to ugly up games. I think this is going to be the best defense by far that Indiana has faced and the best team by far. But I really think being at home, having that little extra touch of explosivity on offense is going to set Indiana over the top. I'd be a little bit more concerned if they were just squeaking by these awful teams that they're playing. But guys, they're beating FBS opponents by 24.4 points on average.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. I don't care who you're playing. So give me Indiana minus the points, keep on rolling to 7-0.
So Indiana statistically is the most efficient offense in the country this year. Now, we were all high on Curtis Rourke. We loved him at Ohio. Didn't see this coming, though. Kurt Cignetti, though, Google me, I win. He's brought that energy, and the Hoosiers have just exploded out of the gate. I'm also going to take Indiana minus the points. I think Nebraska's offense may be hitting the skids just a little bit. Trey, like you mentioned, they're just not clicking as much. That 14-point output against Rutgers looking a whole lot worse.
Home.
Yeah, at home after Wisconsin said, yeah, what do you mean? This isn't tough for us to do on the road. So I am a little bit concerned about Nebraska. I feel like Indiana is just the team of destiny this year. And I think they keep it rolling against the Cornhuskers. They're off a bye week. It's homecoming. The vibes will be immaculate. Give me the fighting Kurt Cignetti's.
I'm going to mostly make a save the graphic pick here. I think that Nebraska covers the 6.5. I don't think that they win. I think Indiana wins this game. I think they're good enough to win this game. But I don't think that they probably end up covering this. Couple reasons why on this one. Number one, Nebraska has the 7th ranked scoring defense in the country this year, 11.3 points per game. I don't think there's a reality where this game is super high scoring. I'd be a little bit surprised if either team makes it to 30, and I don't even know if they make it, that high. So I think this is probably a closer game. And also, I brought it up with Nico at Tennessee, but I'll say it again. Freshman quarterbacks are going to have some massive ups and downs. You're going to have games where they look like the next coming, and it's the new savior for the program. He's even better than that one guy we had 20 years ago. And then there's going to be moments where you're sitting here like, well, what's the backup look like, right? Why did we bench the junior who didn't really look that good last year, but at least he's been in the program, right? There's a lot of questions you can ask when it comes to freshman quarterbacks. The bye week coming last week for Nebraska, I think was at a really good time for them. Kind of escaped, obviously the loss to Illinois, but found a way to escape through Purdue and Rutgers. You're finding your way through the season right now. They had a really good win at Colorado. I think Nebraska's a little bit more tested. I think there's a lot that you can say are, pros and cons for Raiola right now. And I think that they probably worked on a lot of that and got a lot of good chances to kind of sit down with him and work on some stuff. So even though I don't think they win this game, I do think Nebraska puts up a lot more of a fight. And I think that Indiana probably ends up winning this one by, let's say, 3 or 4 points.
Curtis Rourke, I mentioned they're the most efficient passing offense, 74% completion across the season. He's only thrown 2 picks, and he threw that on back-to-back pass attempts. I've forgotten which game that was, but yeah.
It was Maryland. It was the Maryland game.
Of course it was.
Almost got away with from them, but even that one, that was the closest one to them losing, they came back and won by 14.
Yeah. So vibes are high at Indiana. This has been a truly remarkable rebuild and a quick rebuild after we thought that Hoosier football was just dead to rights, completely left for dead. So that'll be a fun one to watch on Saturday as well. To be
clear, I am rooting for Indiana in this one. I've officially joined the bandwagon. I brought it up. I am rooting for them. I'm just going to pump the brakes just a little bit and say, like, let's get the win. Just escape with the win against a good team. Let's start looking towards the end of the season.
Let's roll into our.
Was it you that tweeted the Seinfeld picture that with the red? Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
beautiful
Indiana, Nebraska, Jerry.
Yeah, I've forgotten. I guess it was this. Was it CFB matchup tracker that tweeted out kind of a preview graphic? And yeah, it's Indiana, Nebraska, Jerry. Let's roll into Saturday storylines, shall we? That's presented by Baller Pickleball. Use 3Tech Pod for 10% off your entire order on their website. Guys, we'll go to the ACC that truly has some remarkable storylines. And at any one point, I feel like they're kind of doing the Big 12 right now, where the conference could just flip on its head any given week. So my question for the ACC as we break down, we've got 4 games to look at here. Should the ACC office be holding their breath this weekend? Let me set the stage, guys. We've got number 6 Miami on the road playing Louisville. We've got number 10 Clemson hosting a very plucky Virginia team. Number 21 SMU on the road out west against Stanford. And Georgia Tech hosts number 12 Notre Dame. Trey, let's start with you. Take that wherever you wish. I mean, the table is just loaded with storylines.
I don't know that they're on bated breath in the ACC office, because if they're real with themselves, they already know that they're getting a max of 2 teams in the playoff, right? I don't think, hopefully there's no delusions of grandeur in the ACC office that they're getting 3 teams, because I don't think anyone in their right mind should think that. But there's some tricky spots here, man. I'll start with Miami, Louisville. I'm low-key maybe not the most excited. I'm definitely most excited about Texas, Georgia. But this is a big circle game for me, because Miami has looked vulnerable last 2 weeks. Some might say, maybe not me, but some might say they needed some officials' help to win their last 2 games against Virginia Tech and Cal. But Louisville, I think, is getting overlooked in this one. I think they're a bona fide, solid ACC team that had a couple forgivable losses against Notre Dame and SMU, both by a single touchdown. They can be really explosive on the ground. We've seen Miami struggle with teams that can be explosive on the ground. Hello, Virginia Tech. And they've really struggled with giving up chunk plays lately. So I think this is a really big danger spot for a Miami team that a lot of people are just kind of penciling along 6th in the nation. Seen some people even say they're the only team outside of the Big Ten or SEC that could win a national championship. I don't know. This is a big danger spot for me, and I think Louisville covers that spread at the very least.
I'm going to get on my conspiracy post for a second. I don't think the ACC office needs to hold their breath at all, because they already know what the script is. The ACC office seems to be that meme of the guy looking in the mirror, like, get in there and make it about you, right? That seems to be what the ACC office is attempting, because Trey's right. He said some might say they needed a little official help. I'd say it. They needed the officials' help, and they needed some real nice home cooking to win those. Miami, there's a real chance where if you're following just the way that officiating goes, they got 2 losses this season, but the ACC office wasn't going to find a way to make that happen. They want to find their way for 2 teams, and of course they do, right? Of course they do. Every conference now has an incentive to find a way to make their teams, get to the playoff, right? You got multiple spots, so you want multiple spots. You want the chance to do that. That's a bigger conversation about conference officiating and why there should be a national officiating instead. But that's not for this episode. That's not for this podcast. That's an off-season show. But this is why I would tell you that they don't need to worry about anything. If Miami goes up and plays Louisville and they go up by 14, 20 points early, no problem. You're going to see a fair game. They're going to just stroll on out of there. But if they get down and if they get in the hole, you better watch those little yellow handkerchiefs. They're going to start flying pretty big, and Louisville fans should boo them off the field because it's just unfair. And I don't think that this is going to be necessary in some of the other games because I do think Clemson's much better than Virginia. I do think SMU is much better than Stanford. But Miami's looked pretty susceptible, and they haven't looked that good. Cam Ward is him, but otherwise Miami has really struggled in a lot of spots. And so I think watch that Miami game a little bit closely. That's the thing that I'm looking at this weekend is saying, hey, do they need the refs' help for a third game in the row? Because if they do, this will be a national storyline pretty quick.
And to be fully fair to Miami, they have dominated a lot of the advanced metrics, especially in that Cal game. Like if you look at the did we really get beat that bad graph, Miami was like way up here. But it's the chunk plays. And that's why I'm concerned against Louisville. I think Louisville does have that in them. And as a whole team, they're certainly more talented than both Virginia Tech and Cal.
This is a great spot to be at a home dog as for Louisville, right? They're tough to beat at home. I know SMU walked in and made that look a little bit easier than I think a lot of us expected. But Louisville traditionally at home, pretty tough to beat. I think if they can stop the run and make Miami totally one-dimensional, which is fine. Cam Ward's a great quarterback. But if they can stop the run and make the Canes one-dimensional, I think that's the best chance that they have to get stops and get off the field. And then, Trey, you mentioned it. Offensively, if you can gash the Canes, sometimes that door is wide open. I think Louisville really would like this to be I go back and forth. Louisville maybe could win a rock fight. I tend to think that this game ends up having more points in it than a defensive stalemate. But I think there are ingredients here for the Fighting Papa Johns to win either way. So I'd take Louisville plus the points. Listen, I'll root for Louisville to win. I think Miami has gotten away with a couple of really bad inopportune moments and inconsistent performances. So we'll see if Louisville can pull it off at home. I'm really excited to see Georgia Tech hosting number 12 Notre Dame. Their offense should make this really, really fun. Notre Dame is banged up, guys. They lost Benjamin Morrison, their top cornerback for the season. I believe he had a shoulder. It was either a shoulder or a hip injury that forced him out. They're banged up in the line of scrimmage. Riley Leonard is looking a little bit better throwing the football, but Notre Dame's not built to win a track meet, and Georgia Tech wants to put this on the 4x100 relay. Yeah, and I think that's like 5 preseason starters that are down now for Georgia, Notre Dame, if you count the offensive linemen. So they're running deep here. I just struggle with the matchup for Georgia Tech, and I know that I've been the resident Georgia Tech hater. You guys have been team Yellow Jacket for a couple years now. Yep. But
I struggle with the matchup for Georgia Tech in this one. I think that them wanting to run the ball a lot and not push the ball downfield. I know Haynes King can and will push the ball downfield, and sometimes in some dangerous situations. I think that kind of plays into what the Notre Dame defense has left. It kind of plays right into their hand for me. So I like Georgia Tech to keep this close for a while, but I think it could look similar to the A&M game, maybe with just some more points, where Notre Dame pulls away late, covers the spread, and gets out of there with a win. It's also at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, so it's probably going to be like a 50-50 crowd rather than being at Bobby Dodd.
Yeah, ye of little faith, Trey.
That's me.
Not believing in the
Y'all run me over on the graphic. There's a reason for that.
Don't look at the sweatshirt back here. I don't want to do this in front of them, but I'm pretty much with you, Trey. I think that Notre Dame probably runs away with this one. I'll give you a hard time about it because it's shun the non-believers, Charlie Shun. But I'm not gonna disagree with you on this one. I think this is a bad matchup for Georgia Tech. I think they're still a good team. I think they're still gonna finish the season well, but this just is not the right spot for them right now. I do think they keep it close for a while, like kind of what you're saying. I think this is close for a while, but give me a Notre Dame, kind of pull away score here and kind of ends up winning this one by 14 or something like that.
I'll live a little. I'll believe in something. Give me the wreck covering the spread, keeping it interesting against
winning?
Notre Dame. Let's go to a sensational. I'm sorry, I did not hear what you said.
You asked if you were gonna.
And you just went to the next thing.
Oh no, yeah, your mic definitely cut out. No, I'll say Notre Dame wins, but I'll say Georgia Tech keeps it interesting. Yeah, didn't hear that at all.
That was
Dang.
funny.
Sensational SEC Saturday, guys. I look at this schedule, and if there was one conference I wanted to just camp out in over the weekend, it's the SEC this week. We've got Texas A&M on the road at Mississippi State. That's been a house of horrors for the Aggies over the last couple of years.
2-4 since 2012 in Starkville.
Not good, and some bad
good.
losses, some stinkers dropped in Stark Vegas. Mizzou only a 4.5-point favorite over Auburn. Missouri's at home, aren't they? Or are they on the road? No, they're at home.
Yeah, it's in Como. Yeah.
Yeah. So what does Vegas know there? That's surprising for me. South Carolina's at Oklahoma. The Sooners are 1.5-point favorites, guys. This is my To the Hills message board special. We'll talk about that in just a second. Then you've got LSU 2.5-point favorites at Arkansas, rivalry game there, and Kentucky at Florida, maybe the second place runner-up for To the Hills message board special. Trey had dealer's choice last week, so Garrett, will kick it to you here.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting Saturday in the SEC. I think this is a pole position Saturday, right? I think there's a lot of people that are going to make some moves up or down, not just in our, primary matchups we talked about with the, Texas, Georgia, and then Bama, Tennessee. But, I mean, you're right. This is a spot where A&M could drop. They've definitely dropped at Mississippi State in the past. Mizzou needs to win to stay alive, right? They need to keep winning to stay alive. South Carolina, you kind of out of it right now, but LSU and Arkansas is kind of an interesting one for me because watching LSU last week, yes, they beat Ole Miss, but they didn't do it convincingly. They definitely had some bright spots on the offensive side of the football and also threw a couple of bad picks. And so I'm going to, just ignore that one for a second, pretending that LSU has a perfect offense. And this Arkansas defense has been real tricky to figure out for a lot of teams this year. And, maybe we can question the talent of some of those offenses. Obviously A&M played them close without Connor Wigman. And, we had, the Tennessee game where they ended up pulling off the upset there. But I really like Arkansas's defense to keep this one real close against LSU. Also, LSU having to go on the road for this one. This could be a tricky spot for those Bayou Bengals. And I think that they win this one. I think they find a way out because I don't really trust what Arkansas can do on the offensive side of the ball. But this also hasn't been an LSU defense that's been able to stop very many people. So if Arkansas is ever going to get it going, this might have to be the week to get it going. I still think LSU wins this one, but that's the game that I'm kind of watching the most closely this weekend.
Yeah, Taylon Green's availability is the big thing for me here.
Yeah.
He's had the bye week to heal up. He left that Tennessee game late. Pittman said in his media availability this week that he's hopeful that he can play. That's not really ringing a lot of confidence for me when I hear the word hopeful, but we'll get the injury report tomorrow. I'm sure he'll be questionable all the way up to the last injury report. But if he plays, give me Arkansas on the points, and I might lock that up as my dog of the week, guys, because situationally, LSU coming off a huge emotional win, Arkansas coming off a bye, getting to kind of chill out after that big win over Tennessee. Arkansas is at home. I love the matchup of Arkansas's defensive line against LSU's offensive line that's held a lot of holes this year. Nuss might be running for his life in this one. So if Taylon Green plays and the Arkansas offense can actually move the ball, give me Arkansas on the points.
And a night game for that home crowd. Like, that's going to be a home crowd that wants to double dip off of that Tennessee. So let's
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Trey. I would take Arkansas. I would take Arkansas outright if Taylon Green is healthy. Now, realistically, I'm not going to touch this because I don't know if he is going to be healthy. But if he can play and if he can be dynamic, LSU's defense is gettable on the ground, which is going to be Arkansas's plan A. But through the air, they are bad. They're giving up a 64% completion percentage to opposing quarterbacks, and they're 101st in the country in total passing yards given up. This LSU defense just doesn't have that nail to hang your hat on. And so going on the road, as good as they are at home, and there was a reason why I originally picked them to win that game before the wide receiver injuries came out at home. They're a different animal in Baton Rouge at night. But you go on the road, and you're going to have an Arkansas team that I feel like has nothing to lose this season. They're playing with house money. Maybe Sam Pittman has secured his job past 2024. Obviously a win here, and boy, he can name his price for an extension in Fayetteville. So give me the Hogs. I'll take them plus the points. If Taylon Green's accessible and available. I think they could win this game outright. South Carolina and Oklahoma, guys, boy, this is the biggest question that I have for this game is what on earth is the offensive game plan? Because both teams' quarterbacks stink throwing the ball through the air. We haven't really seen much from Michael Hawkins Jr. It wasn't even in the game plan last week with 5 wide receivers out. Lenora Sellers, he can throw a great touchdown. He can throw a terrible pick. It really just kind of depends on which side of the coin you flip to. Is there a way that you're leaning in this game as the Sooners return home to lick their wounds?
I will not pick Oklahoma to win or cover a spread the rest of this year until I see an offensive game plan that resembles some sort of competency from that coaching staff, because that was coaching malpractice.
It was pathetic.
Last week. They had 2 weeks to get a game plan ready for Texas. 2 weeks to get ready for your biggest rival, and that's what you put on the field? Sorry, I didn't get to be on the live show on Saturday, so I need to get caught in on that. It was pathetic.
Trey has some stuff to say, guys.
Pathetic. Guys, it was coaching malpractice. It feels like 2022 Texas A&M, and I don't say that lightly. So,
yeah,
South Carolina plus anything, South Carolina outright until proven otherwise with Oklahoma. I'm done taking them seriously until their coaches prove I should.
That comes from a deep, deep place of pain and trauma.
Yeah. For me, I'm looking at this one, and I'm seeing the other games in that time slot as Miami, Louisville, Virginia, Clemson, Nebraska, Indiana, games we've already talked about and are excited for. Arizona State plays Cincinnati in that window. That might be fun. I'm leaning towards not watching this game at all. I'm going to be honest. I'm leaning towards not seeing anything except for the highlights, because this game, and I say highlights as if there's going to be any, this game is stinky gross. I don't even want to watch this game if I'm being completely honest, because both teams just look bad. Like, South Carolina stuck around. They, played with Bama for a little bit. I'm not really convinced that their pass game is anything. I think it's going to be a lot of design QB run, a lot of read option type stuff. And it's just going to be who can tackle more. It's going to be a muddied up, ugly game on the ground for, I think, both of these teams. I don't want to watch this game at all. I think if I had to lean one way, I'd probably pick South Carolina to win this one. But I think this is going to be two kind of ugly looking teams that don't really play all that well going against each other.
The total is 40.5. And that seems like a lock on
Under.
the under to me.
Under. Give me the under on that one. Yeah, both of these offenses stink. I think there's a lot of legitimacy to both defenses. Oklahoma's defense played scrappy. They were just on the field like every second of the game. So I really couldn't fault them for their performance. South Carolina, they're not in any of these games. They're 2-4? They're not in any of these games. Without that defense, that front seven's getting after opposing quarterbacks. They made Jalen Milroe really uncomfy last week. I think they're going to do the same to whoever is QB1 at Oklahoma. I mean, I'm assuming it's Hawkins Jr. because, boy, Jackson Arnold needs to have his name in the transfer portal yesterday. I mean, that
I'm
kid,
assuming he already unofficially does and just told the coaching staff, don't count on me helping you. Yeah. And he should, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
No,
and South Carolina, just for the record, South Carolina is 3-3, but your point still stands.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, South Carolina fans. You guys are
all the wins.
Hang on a minute, man. We won 3 games, not 2.
My apologies. Yeah, Jackson Arnold needs to burn all the bridges to Norman. I feel so bad with how they've treated him. And again, we're not in practice. We're not behind the scenes. But boy, it feels like at some point you owed it to the 5-star who has, according to all the reports, prepared the right way and practiced the right way and gotten ready for the game like he was going to start. And you don't even give him a chance.
The guy you let Dylan Gabriel walk for. Also,
that's also true.
Also, remember that.
Yep,
that's also a fact that happened in Norman. So yeah, really, really concerned about the Oklahoma program right now. We do have to talk Texas A&M. They're number 14 in the country. They are 14.5-point favorites in Starkville. Trey, you mentioned 2-4 in their last 6 trips to Stark Vegas. It has not been pretty, but I do think that this A&M team is equipped to handle Mississippi State, whereas in years past, maybe there was a glaring weakness, something that we were overlooking. I don't know. The vibes are weird down in Stark Vegas. The cowbells start ringing and anything can happen. But I do think this Texas A&M team, the way that they can get after the quarterback, the way the secondary has improved over these last couple of weeks, plus you have a couple of weeks of film on a young quarterback to help Mike Elko prepare for that, I tend to lean Texas A&M winning this game comfortably. 14.5 is a really good number. I would probably pick the Aggies by 14.
I'll take the Aggies to cover very hesitantly, but just because of the history. I know the history is crazy in Starkville, but it's a different A&M coaching staff, and this is a different Mississippi State team, in all honesty. This is kind of a hapless Mississippi State team. They give up over 200 yards per game on the ground, so A&M should be able to name their rushing total in this one. If Mississippi State decides to stack the box and take that away, I like Connor Wegman and what I saw against Missouri. So if we see the A&M team off of a bye that we saw against Missouri, Mississippi State kind of coming down from a big moment where they got to Georgia, played them relatively close thanks to some big plays and turnovers. I think you could see this going A&M's way relatively easily. Guys, I think the stadium might be empty. Also, if you look on StubHub for this one, you can get in for $5. It might be an empty stadium for most of this one. Maybe even more Aggie fans than Mississippi State fans.
Yeah, Trey. One of the tweets for me for the week was a guy came out and said that I can't remember who it was, but somebody did the ticket cost price.
It was Robert Barons. I know he
was it Robert Barons? Yeah, I thought it was Robert. I didn't want to say for sure, but yeah. He said the ticket price for one ticket against Texas over at A&M at the end of the year, you could spend that money, or you could go to Starkville with 72 of your closest friends and buy everybody tickets to that game. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think I'll go a little bit of a step further here. I think this will be more of a glorified scrimmage for the Aggies. I'm not trying to disrespect Mississippi State. I know Van Buren has looked a lot better and kind of given them something on the offensive side, but I still think that A&M's too dominant in all phases of this game versus Mississippi State. They've looked good in a lot of ways, and I think that there's a lot of people wanting to prove that wasn't just a fluke against Missouri. So I think this will be a spot where you can kind of watch the offense try some passing, try some intermediate stuff, try some deep shots, see what they've got, and kind of try some plays against a team that's not just your own. Though the uniforms look similar enough to maybe what they might have been seeing in practice, so maybe that's part of it. But I just think this is going to be a little bit of a blowout. Look at last year's game against Mississippi State. I know this wasn't Starkville, but last year's game against Mississippi State with a different quarterback than Connor Wegman was a blowout.
When they trotted a check on the field to fire the coach.
Yeah, exactly. And that wasn't a great team last year. It was probably better than what it looked like with Jimbo, but not a great team last year. There's a much better team this year and a much better mindset. You listen to some of those guys and what they've been saying kind of coming out of their bye week, and hear them talking about like, oh yeah, we get a great opportunity to go get some demons off our back, and we get a great opportunity to go in and like face a big test. So if the Aggie players are viewing this as a big test, this one will be over quick.
You can pay all the money, or you can exercise your 3-tech option and get into the stadium for free $99, which I'm doing, at least allegedly. I think I have that ticket secured, so we'll see. Would be fun to be there in person, and sounds like Dolly might agree. All right, let's leave the SEC and let's go to the Big 12. Guys, who brings the boom for the Big 12 this week? The conference is hanging on by a thread as far as a legitimate postseason contender. We know that somebody will be in the playoff based on winning the conference, but with Utah falling by the wayside and, Kansas State has been up and down. Iowa State's still undefeated, though, so you've got a couple irons in the fire. Colorado's still alive. Arizona State, gentlemen. But let's start there. They take on Cincinnati, who's also alive in their own right for the Big 12 title game. Jeff Sims is the quarterback now at Arizona State. Cincinnati is now favored by 6.5. They are hosting the Sun Devils. Guys, Kenny Dillingham can talk all he wants in the week leading up. He can get his team ready. I don't think that there's enough time to prepare, though, for Jeff Sims to be your quarterback.
Yeah, I sent you guys the screenshot from the college football Reddit earlier today where it was an Arizona State fan basically saying, like, all he has to do is hand the ball off, right? He can do that. And there were 2 Nebraska fans that were just like, buddy, I got some bad news for you. That's not – you cannot count on Jeff Sims to do that. Maybe he's matured. Maybe this is a better situation in Arizona State, but – I think going on the road to a plucky Cincinnati team, a team we haven't talked about a ton, maybe we need to start talking about Cincinnati because I keep expecting them to lose a lot of these games or not cover some of these games. And they keep playing tough. They keep playing close games in their losses, and they keep winning a lot of games. And they're right there in the Big 12 with only 1 loss. So I think they win against a depleted ASU. The run defense does concern me, though. They're at 91st. You put the note in there, Mitch. The run defense is awful, and Cam Scadaboo can certainly take care of that as long as the ball gets into his hands without any problems.
I agree. I think the recipe here for Arizona State is just run it 60 times right at Cincinnati. The Bearcats, though, have been scoring points. They're scoring 31 on average per game. Brendan Sorsby leading that offense, the Indiana transfer, and I've forgotten, I think he'd been somewhere else as well. But yeah, the Bearcats have looked so much more competent than they did last season. In fact, this was kind of the Cincinnati team I expected to see last year. If they got anything from the offense, they were going to be, a conference, maybe not a title contender, but at least a fun story in the conference. Evidently, just a year too early on that block. But I think it is a challenge for Arizona State. I'm going to take Cincinnati at home, though, as well. I just feel like all Cincinnati has to do is get a couple stops running the football. And I mean, that literally should take care of the rest. Like Jeff Sims is a turnover waiting to happen. He finds ways to lose games. And so I love what Kenny Dillingham is doing out there in Tempe. But, some things are bigger than football. And unfortunately, I think the Jeff Sims curse might be that.
I'm sticking with the Sun Devils, man. This might be a bad call here, just sticking with them, but I like the running matchup. I love Scadaboo. I think he's a great back. And I'm going to go with what Brent Key said, run the dang ball. I think that's the mantra right now for Arizona State. If they can just run the dang ball, I think they're going to be all right. I don't think a couple stops is going to be enough. I think I think they can keep it close. I think it'll be a tight game. Definitely don't see either side running away with this one. But I do think the mantra is just run the dang ball, right? And I think that's what they're going to do. They've been successful at it, and I just like Scadaboo until proven otherwise.
Two home favorites in the Big 12 to talk about. Iowa State, they're 6-0. They're 14-point favorites at home against UCF. Straightforward enough. Arizona, though, they're favored by 3 over Colorado. Guys, Noah Fifita was last seen throwing as many balls into the opposing team's hands as he possibly could. Colorado barely lost to Kansas State, and they have looked like a more competent team. I'm really struggling to figure out, with a healthy Travis Hunter this weekend, why on earth Colorado is not the favorite.
Yeah, I think Prime has said that he expects Travis Hunter to play, right? So
yeah,
I think that, with him back, I'm pumped about the matchup of Travis Hunter and T-Mac. I think that's going to be must-see TV in this game. But, I mean, Colorado has been improved. They haven't necessarily historically under Dion gone on the road and been world beaters. I know they've had the 2 big exceptions in TCU last year and UCF this year, but I'm leaning towards taking Colorado in the points, but I certainly see why you would give Arizona a little bit of an advantage in home field and just wait and see with Colorado here, because it is something that historically they haven't necessarily been able to take care of business.
Yeah, I'm kind of going that direction. Actually, Trey, I like Arizona at home in this one. I do think that they'll get it done. And really, Tetro McMillan is like the big reason why. I do think that it'll be a good matchup, but maybe not quite 100% from Hunter. And I just think that's going to be enough to be a problem. I think they go back and forth. There's a couple of future pros, but I think Fifita is too good of a player. I might be wrong about this, but I think Fifita is too good of a player to throw up that type of performance again. I think he'll bounce back. I think he'll take care of the football. And I think that Arizona is going to probably end up winning this game by a couple points.
We'll see. It would be huge for Arizona. It would. Is Arizona, how many losses in conference does Arizona have? Do we know off the top of it?
2. They're 1-2 in conference.
Okay. So they need stuff. They don't control their destiny. That's for sure. They need some stuff to break their way. Colorado with a loss, I think, would officially be eliminated from.
Yeah, they lost close to Texas Tech at home and then got smoked by one of the best teams in the country, BYU.
Yeah, that's right.
But I'm gonna keep standing on that one until I get my apology.
Are we worried about Iowa State at all this weekend, Trey? The Clones, even though they're 6-0, they have a really good defense. They're average against the run. They're 63rd against the run. That's kind of the one thing that UCF somewhat does right, even though they benched KJ Jefferson.
Yeah, I'm not worried. UCF
Who called that, by the way? We called that. That transfer made sense for Gus Malzahn.
Well, no, it made sense for the Gus Malzahn offense. I was actually legitimately surprised that KJ Jefferson hasn't been more successful.
Oh, he's been terrible.
UCF. But yeah, he's been really struggled. Yeah, UCF's just not in a place right now where I can take them to win this outright. Maybe they keep it close. Maybe they give Iowa State a little bit of a scare. Maybe Iowa State's riding a little bit too high. If this was in Orlando, I'd be a little bit more concerned with them covering, but I think Iowa State covers this relatively easy. Rocco Beck's having a year, guys. Like, quietly, he needs to get some more consideration for some major awards. He's put that team on his back and carried that offense.
He was Big 12 newcomer of the year last year, and he has just kept going right in stride. This Iowa State team, they're fun again, which I think is really good for the Big 12. Kansas State having a loss on their record is amazing news for West Virginia. The note that West Virginia, all three of their losses have come against teams who are 18-0 blows my mind. So theoretically, this should be really good news for West Virginia. I am concerned, though, that it's back-to-back brutal games for the Nears at home. And, last year, Neil Brown Magic was alive and well. I don't know that it carried over into 2024.
Yeah, the good news is they're playing a team with a loss on the record. The bad news is that team is Kansas State, and they're starting to play a little bit better. And, yes, I realize they were only playing Colorado, but Avery Johnson's starting to throw the ball a little bit, guys. I'm maybe starting to believe a little bit. This is one of those, look out. I said that I wouldn't believe in him until he could. He's starting to throw it around a little bit. And maybe not impressive, maybe not at the, craziest levels we've ever seen, but big step in the right direction. I might be reconsidering my Kansas State hate. This is a young quarterback who's developing in the middle of the year. So if he can keep taking those steps, and I think he will in this game as well, if he can keep taking those steps, Kansas State's going to be dangerous towards the end of the year.
What stands out in the Big Ten this weekend to you guys? Because I see Michigan and Illinois, and maybe people are like, "Now wait a minute, how come that wasn't your big three game of the week from the Big Ten?" We took Indiana over Nebraska. Frankly,
and to those people, I'd say, "Come on."
Yeah, I mean, frankly, the juice is in with Indiana and Nebraska, not with Michigan and Illinois. This is a game that I am very happy to not watch a second of unless something just tremendous happens, and kind of watch the highlights, get the box score going later.
We're all in on Illinois plus 3.5 in this game, right? Like, is anyone taking Michigan in the points there?
This is in Champaign, or is it in the Big House? Yeah, Illinois at home. Yeah, I'll go.
I'm leaning that way. I want to see the Michigan QB play because they really haven't had anything consistent at that spot.
Yeah, Jack Tuttle taking over, so that's something new, at least.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Is it's a new thing, so I want to see if the new thing is okay. I'm not believing it's going to be okay right now, but it could be fine. So kind of want to see if we get into that QB play, but I'm not going to believe right now in what Michigan could put on the field until they show me something.
I'm interested in USC at Maryland. That's one that we highlighted preseason. Maryland has not lived up to that bargain, but USC has certainly lived up to their end of the bargain of us thinking that Maryland had a chance in this one. Long trip across the country, 12 o'clock noon kickoff body time for USC, I think, if I'm doing my math right. So interesting game there, to say the least. USC 7-point favorites on the road. I think I lean USC getting it done. I don't think that they can cover a 7-point spread right now, but I think I lean in USC getting it done, at least getting the win.
I can't. I'm on record as saying Maryland was going to win this game, so I am going to stand firm and say, sure, Maryland wins this, even though MJ Morris is nowhere to be seen and the defense has been MIA. And, oh, by the way, they lost by 27 to Northwestern last weekend in College Park. Other than that, though, yeah, the Mike Loxley days are going just fine, and I'm really happy to be a T-shirt Maryland fan. Sure.
I do want to say there's two notes in the Big Ten this week that I have. First off, we finally get the LA to Piscataway game that we were finally hoping for. UCLA does go to Rutgers. That's kind of fun. We get that. And my second
That's the body clock game. That one is what, like 7 a.m., 8 a.m. local time
8 a.m.
for
local.
UCLA? Yeah.
And so that's going to be a crazy one to figure out for them. My second one is more of a question. Who do you think gets more views on Peacock this weekend? Iowa at Michigan State or the dinner party episode of The Office?
Well, I think the Iowa-Michigan State game is also on NBC.
It is on NBC as well. Yeah. I'm asking specifically on Peacock.
Technicality.
Well,
I'm asking specifically on Peacock.
For some reason, my YouTube TV doesn't include our local NBC station, so I will be watching that one on Peacock. So I don't know how many other people are in my boat, but maybe I'll watch the dinner party just to balance it out and give you a
There you
fair.
go. See, there's a lot of good night games. That's my only big thing there is if you can't get this one in a quad box somewhere, which you can if you get the NBC channel and you're not Trey. But I just don't see somebody, turning the quad box off to go over to Peacock and watch this one.
Jan might have the most impressive throw out of those two options when she throws the Dundee into the TV.
That is true. Yeah.
You might see a better forward pass on the Office than what you're going to see between Michigan State and Iowa.
Yeah.
We'll see. Turbo offense, finish out the show here tonight, guys. UNT and Memphis is all of a sudden a massive game in the American. Both teams 5-1. North Texas is overachieving. Memphis was expected to be 6-0 until the midshipmen decided to be really good. I think Memphis gets this done, but boy, I'm excited about the direction that Eric Morris has the North Texas Mean Green.
Yeah, Memphis 11.5-point favorites at home. I'd give North Texas a little bit more of a chance if it was in Denton, but yeah, Memphis is going to take care of business here. But yeah, North Texas was one of your darlings, Mitch, and I kind of laughed at you for saying they would get to a bowl game. They just need one more win.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm going blind faith in North Texas to keep this one close. I'm going to say North Texas finds a way to do some goofy stuff, and they'll be in this one at the end. Don't know that they win, but let's say that they'll stick in this one and lose by a couple.
A couple of G5 games also to talk about. Let's start in the MAC. Toledo and NIU clashing in a MAC elimination game. At least it kind of feels that way with Buffalo 2-0 in conference. Ohio's 2-0 in conference. Buffalo has beaten both of these teams so far. The new regime up there for the Bulls has really taken effect early. Is there a leaning that y'all have on either one of these sides? It feels like maybe Northern Illinois at home should get the leaning here.
Yeah, that Northern Illinois defense is pretty legit, and I'm going to go ahead and believe in this one to keep them, stifled. It seems like the thing for MAC teams is just a really good defense and an offense that can do enough. It seems like that's typically what the recipe is for success in the MAC. I think it continues here. I think NIU is going to just stifle and just kind of shut it down.
Yeah, when pressed in a MAC game, I usually go with the home team. So we'll go with, You said NIU's the home team?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get Northern Illinois.
Yeah, I think NIU might be the better rushing team as well. Gavin Williams and Terrio Brown have combined for over 800 yards on the ground collectively. So, yeah, give me the Huskies. We've got Sunbelt battles to watch. Louisiana at Coastal. Louisiana's 5-1. They're second in the West. Guys, do you know who they're behind in the Sunbelt West standings?
Louisiana Monroe.
That's right. The Warhawks, baby. So
the
Raging Cajuns are on the road at Coastal. JMU is on the road at Georgia Southern, who's currently leading the East despite being 4-2. I think if I had to pick one of these two, I'm going to take JMU and Georgia Southern. I think I like the Dukes to get the win. Their offense has been really explosive, but don't count out the Eagles either. I've loved what they've done. They've kept a very steady program, and now we've got games that count and matter in the Sun Belt. We love watching the Sun Belt every single year just because the standings typically give you a lot of fun in that mid-pack.
Yeah, James Madison bounced back nicely from that upset loss to North. That's aging kind of nicely to ULM.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I loved what I saw from their offense against Coastal last week. I'd be surprised personally if they lost another game this year. I'm rolling with JMU all the way out.
Right there with you guys.
Okay, love to hear it. And finally, Trey, you put this note in.
Yes.
You've got Wazoo potentially being 11-1. Please explain.
Well, first of all, what do we as a college football universe do if Wazoo goes 11-1? Do they get into the playoff at 11-1? Probably not. Probably not. But guys, if they host Hawaii this week, that's first and foremost. I think they're like 14 or 17-point favorites in that game. Don't have the spread memorized. After this week, they have at least an 80% chance to win all of their remaining games except Oregon State. They're on the road at Oregon State. Hasn't looked like a juggernaut this year. Just ask the fighting Jeff Choates of Nevada. They have a 57% chance to beat Oregon State on the road per the FPI. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying I want to live in a world where Wazoo is 11-1 and knocking on the door of like an 11 seed.
Here. I will co-sign that.
I will die on that hill.
give me the Cougars to be fun and throw some weirdness in.
That'd be a lot of fun. Imagine a world where Washington State gets into the playoff and BYU finishes out, and then that's a playoff matchup.
Hey, what we don't even get West Coast action in college baseball, and it feels like obviously the regional system for college basketball keeps it on the West Coast, but like the best college baseball gets played east of the Mississippi. The best college football a lot of the times in the South and the East Coast. Let's have a playoff game go west. That'd be a ton of fun.
That'd be a lot of fun.
I plugged it into the All-State playoff predictor.
Okay.
And it says if Washington State goes 11-1, according to these projections, they have a 62% chance to make the playoff and would be the 9 seed traveling to Oregon.
Could you imagine them getting out of that, making the playoff over like a 10-2 Georgia?
This is now
imagine Georgia getting bumped for Washington State.
This is now the scenario that I need in my life to be happy and feel.
I'll start doing the little, seance, putting the candles out there, like please.
Give me a playoff game on the Palouse. That would be amazing.
Please.
All right. Well, with visions of sugar plums and Cougars in the playoff, let's end the show right there. Like and subscribe wherever you're listening or watching this show. We appreciate you having us on, being a part of the Jimmies and the Joes. As a reminder for all new folks, we have 2 episodes go out weekly, the second of which is a live show on Saturday night. So if you like talking college football into the wee hours of the morning, come hang out with us. Trey and Garrett will take you home this next Saturday, and we're really
a live show on Mondays. Don't forget to check out 3 Tech Takeout on Mondays.
And the 3 Tech Takeout, yeah, the YouTube exclusive, which is headed up by Trey. So you got plenty of content to come check us out, hang out, and we'd love to continue the conversation and interaction with you offline as well. For Trey Reeves and Garrett Turney, I'm Mitch Mason. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Until the Saturday Night Live show, so long, everybody.
Gracious him. How about